Fire Across the Galaxy. This is the final episode of Season 1 of Rebels, so I'm going to talk about the episode and then talk about how I felt about Season 1 as a whole. And boy, a lot of stuff happened here. And first off, I'm sorry I didn't do this right after the episode aired, but I wanted some time for the episode to digest. I want to let it sink in, and let me center this a bit more. Digest, and also, I just wanted to think it through. So I'm just real quick going to sum up the episode, and of course there's going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, don't watch this video until then. But anyway, so the Rebels rescue Kanan by flying the ship to Star Destroyers over Mustafar. They rescue Kanan, there's a fight with the Inquisitor, Kanan kills the Inquisitor, and they leave. The Rebel Alliance shows up. Turns out there are many Rebel cells fighting across the galaxy, and Hera's the only one who knows about this interconnected network. And they join the Rebel fleet. They take off into hyperspace, and it turns out Fulcrum is Ahsoka. And I didn't like it, and it's not that it was bad. I mean, it was fun, but I didn't really care. I mean, one problem I've had with the season overall is I never really get to know or care about any of these characters, and I just didn't care. There's this fight between Kanan and the Inquisitor, and mind you, it's a really cool fight. It's, really fun, fast-paced, exciting, but there's nothing really going on in the fight outside the fact that Kanan and the Inquisitor are fighting. And we don't know, I don't really know enough about Kanan to the point where I care about him, and I don't know enough about the Inquisitor to the point where I find him interesting. He's just been generic bad guy the entire time. So literally you have these two guys fighting, but I don't care. It's not like in Empire Strikes Back when Luke's fighting Vader, and Vader's a villain we've come to know and love. Luke's a protagonist we've come to know and love, and also Luke believes Vader killed his father. He saw him kill Obi-Wan. There's a bit of history. Here it's just Kanan's a good guy, and the Inquisitor is a bad guy, and so there literally isn't much going on in the fight. And when the Inquisitor dies, I really don't care because we never got to know him as a villain. He was just the bad guy. He just spouts generic bad guy dialogue like, the dark side is all powerful. And I'm sorry, you need to give me more than that if I were going to care. In Clone Wars, when Savage Opress died, it's depressing because Savage is a character we know and love. Why? Because we got to know who he is. We got to see his training. We got to see, everything Ventress put him through to make him who he was. So we know, so when Savage dies, it's a character we've spent quite a bit of time getting to know. And also, he has Maul to interact with, so we have these villains interacting with each other. So when bad stuff happens to them, we care of some bit of concern. Here, it's just oh, the bad guy died. And I think another thing that bothered me was the humor. There are a lot of times in the finale when there'd be a really intense scene and they just throw a joke in. I didn't like the painted TIE fighter gag. I mean, I know Filoni's well, we've never seen that in Star Wars before. But yeah, but do we really need to see that? I mean, I get that this show is for little kids, but still have some respect for the older Star Wars fans. And also, there was, a really cool joke when, the Star Destroyer is blowing up. It's this really intense, we gotta get out of here a moment. And they see the Inquisitor's TIE Fighter, and I was just well, he won't be using it again. And it's this isn't the time to be making jokes. And there was also a lot of generic, cheesy, cliche dialogue, you shouldn't have come for me. You would have done the same for me. I'm not leaving without you! And then they acknowledge the Stormtrooper's bad aim, which you should never do. I think it's much more fun if you just don't address that. And yeah, I mean, that's my main problem. It was cliche, cheesy dialogue, and I don't really care about the characters. But I do like part of where the show's going. Now, Ahsoka coming back, I mean, as cool as it is to see her, as predictable as it was, I think I would rather have not seen her come back. And here's the reason why. It's one of those, I think it's more Filoni's passion. They think he's a little too attached to Ahsoka to let her go. And here's the thing. When Filoni wrote Clone Wars not knowing he was going to do Rebels, and not sure if you guys know this, but again, I'll have a link to this in the description, but Filoni had plans for 2 more seasons of Clone Wars. There was going to be a bit more of Season 6, like episodes that were being worked on but weren't completed when the show was canceled. And then there were like 2 more seasons planned. And Ahsoka, when he wrote that character, I'm pretty sure he wrote an ending to her story. Now, Filoni did say that he mapped out what she was doing, like, during the events of the original trilogy. So I have no doubt, like, he wasn't gonna kill her off. But the point is, I feel like there was going to be some sense of closure to her. Some sense. Sure. And I honestly, it also just feels really weird. Because, again, I'm pretty sure when Filoni wrote, like, the final Ahsoka story for Season 7, the show, which I'm either would be related to Lux, would be related to the Bo-Katan arc we've seen, I'm pretty sure he wrote that thinking this might be the last time I ever get to write for this character. So bringing her back, it's just like opening a door that Filoni should have closed. And, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Ahsoka, but I would have much rather just left her on that really nice note at the end of Clone Wars. And also, it just feels really weird. The last time we see Ahsoka, she's really depressed and upset, and the next time we see her is bright and smiling. Like, I much rather would have seen what she did immediately after leaving the Jedi Order. I mean, I'm sure we'll learn about it in Rebels, but knowing that Filoni had plans to tell that story in Clone Wars prior to it being canceled, I much rather would have seen the show just do that. But who knows? Maybe, I mean, they're releasing like all this planned stories via comics or novels, so hopefully Ahsoka's story will get more treatment. I mean, especially now she's on the show and those stories still happen, I really hope at some point we get to see it, or if not, at the very least, like they do. Would it be awesome if we had a flashback episode to it, just randomly we have like the 4-part arc in the show? But you'll have to see. I don't like the design of Ahsoka though. Like it's something seems off about it. I mean, we see Ahsoka as adult at one point in the Clone Wars, and I much rather prefer that design to the one in Rebels. The one in Rebels just looks weird. And the Vader cameo, it would have been cool if they hadn't ruined in all the promos. Now, before I go, I just want to quickly let's talk about the Rebel, which I like the fact that there's already rebels out there. These are rebels that are getting recruited for part of the bigger rebellion, and because it seemed a little weird to me that we're a couple years away from A New Hope, and the Rebel Alliance and these guys are the rebels. Like, so the fact that it already exists, I think, makes total sense. And I also really like the fact that we joined the rebellion. I mean, it means we can have a bigger, more large-scale story. Like, it's not like the first one or just a small... I can kind of see where they're going now, because it's like the first season you're doing like the small-scale individual rebellion, and now that they're part of now the rebels are back, now we can have a much bigger story. We can do like bigger grand... We can kind of do like the straight-up rebels versus Empire story that I thought the show was going to be in the beginning. I mean, we have in a fleet, we can have individual missions. They said we're going to get off of Lothal in Season 2, which is good, because like... We didn't really get off of Lothal in Season 1, and whenever we did, it was usually to, like, a very not-so-impressive location, like Kessel. I don't count Kessel because that was the movie, you have to go big, but the only time we went to a planet, it was an Axis, and that doesn't count because that was just them using an asset from... that was planned for Clone Wars in the Bad Batch arc, which the writer did tweet they were going to tell that story somehow. I can't wait for that. But yeah, but part of me feels like they didn't just do Lothal have a Lothal centric season because it started the story. They were doing that because like they were clearly rushed on Season 1. They clearly didn't have as much time to work on it as they would like, so they just reused the same location over and over again to save time and resources. I think that's it. So with Season 2, like, there's more episodes and we're getting off Lothal. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that they had more time to work on this season and more time to plan everything out. But I'm interested in Season 2, which will have more episodes and more variety, and hopefully they'll get better. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much a bad episode, it's just, my standards are really high when it comes to TV. So... let's talk about Season 1 overall, which was average. I mean, it felt like Star Wars for toddlers. I mean, there were some fun little moments there, some bits and interesting pieces of character, but at the end of the day, I really didn't care about anything that happened. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that we never really got to know these characters. Like, they were very one-note, one-dimensional. I mean, the sad part is that... Hold on a second. This novel, which I don't care about, did more to flesh out characters and story than this. Now, to be granted, it's a very simple, childish novel, but we actually get to know who Kanan is in this novel. Like, we spend time with him, we get to see him go about his daily life. Like, I wish we had done that with Ezra, like, seen him go about his daily life. And the other characters that join Kanan and Hera and the active rebellion they do on this one planet, like, okay, they're actually fleshed out. Like, there's this security person. We get to know her a bit before she joins. There's this other guy I can't remember, but we get to know him. The villains are much more fleshed out. Like, I forget the name of it. Count Vidian. Like, we actually get to know him. Like, he's not just a bad guy. He's like a perfectionist. He's like Mr. Organized, Mr. Schedule, Mr. Productive. And then there's the female Imperial officer, which I like that there was a female Imperial officer in that book, which we never get to see in the show for some reason. Hopefully in Season 2 we get to see it, but I digress. But she was fleshed out. This show, we never really get anything fleshed out, and like I never really cared for the characters, like, and I also thought the dialogue was a little cheesy, like, and I think a part of it is them also making it for little kids. I think part of it is also Filoni is writing the show, and his vision of Star Wars is slightly different from George Lucas's, and, like, in interviews, he's talked about, like, how he thought Clone Wars was too dark, and how he likes it better when the good guys win. And I honestly hope that's just Disney giving him notes, like telling him to give a happy ending, to make it lighter in tone, and it's not Filoni talking, because, like, he in interviews when talking about Clone Wars, he was pretty enjoyed how dark the show was, and, like, how it matured and grew up with the younger viewers watching it. And also, Empire Strikes Back, best Star Wars film, ends with the bad guys winning. Like, it just seems a little baffling that Filoni doesn't realize how effective it is when you have a story end with the bad guys winning. Even Avatar, like, it was a lot of moments where the bad guys would win, and that would be entertaining. So it just kind of bums me that Filoni's talking. I mean, I really hope it's just Disney giving them notes. And again, I also don't want to blame the writers too much for the show, because they were rushed. Like, they had a year to get this season together. Like, a little over a year to get, like, most of the season together. Like, they had a couple months to conceive it, then they spent, like, the next year, like, scripting, doing concept art animating, and if you know anything about how Clone Wars was put together, you know they would spend, like, a little over 2 years putting a season together. So the fact that they are being asked to put it together in half the time, like, makes sense. I mean, it explains why the stories are very phoned in cliche. Like, they really didn't have time to, like, really flesh out a script. They had to, like, really just put something together really quick and then just immediately go to animation, because animation takes a really, really long time. And to be fair, it looks really good, and really good. But yeah, at the same time, in order to get it to look that really good, you can't waste too much time working on the script. So I think Filoni just tried to keep the script really simple so they could get them out fast enough. And again, I feel like if they had just sat down and really brainstormed, they could have done something. And I think also just knowing that next season we're going to have a full-scale rebellion, like, I can't help but feel like this whole season was just a prologue for the next season. Like, we're not really going to do much this season, but next season, that's when we're really going to bring out the big guns. Again, I've already talked about how they just recycle locations to probably save animation, but I'm more just disappointed with the show, just considering, like, the fact that these are the guys who made Clone Wars. But I think I'm also just really disappointed because, like, we canceled Clone Wars to get the show, and Clone Wars, like, for granted, it had, like, its not so great episodes, but then there were really good episodes. There's, like, nothing really spectacular about this show. Like, the animation isn't as good as Clone Wars, the writing isn't as good, the characters aren't as good. Like, I'm not criticizing the show because it's different, I'm criticizing it for its quality. Like, even Korra, while it's not as good as Avatar, was still entertaining and engaging. Like, there was still good writing. Here, there's not really much good writing, it's more just Star Wars for toddlers. But, again, like, I mean, it still wasn't awful. I'm just more disappointed because, like, if Clone Wars wasn't canceled, I probably wouldn't hate this show as much. But because it is, I am. And again, I don't blame them. They were rushed now. And the show could get better. I mean, Clone Wars got better. And also, they had a bit more time to work on Season 2. Like, not much. Like, they probably still had... Like, they still had, like, a year. There's still, like, a year between when little less than a year between the concept art and the show. But I really... But I feel like definitely by Season 3, the show's going to hit this point where they are going to have, like, enough time to work on. I mean, I really hope... I mean, there's more episodes this time, so I really hope Disney's not rushing them and that they aren't getting nowhere. Because honestly, it feels like at times they aren't being given as much time to work on these seasons as they would have liked. But I mean, the fact that it still looks nice, I think, is something. And I'm just rambling at this point, so I'm going to stop. I'll just leave on this. The Gravity Falls promo that they showed during this was way more entertaining than the actual episode, and I cannot wait for that. And also, now that Season 1's over, we can probably get some more legacy stuff. Brent Friedman, one of the writers of Clone Wars, he tweeted that we're probably going to be getting Bad Batch soon. And if you don't know what that is, it was an arc that was going to be the opener for Season 7 of Clone Wars. It would have featured the return of Echo. It would have featured an experimental group of clones known as Bad Batch. And that story never got to be seen. It was partially animated and the script was finished. In fact, like the Anaxis planet that we see in Out of Darkness, that was like a location that they had designed for that arc. So now that Rebels is done, like in between like this, the end of Season 1 and the start of Season 2, I'm hoping that we can get that because I cannot wait to vlog about that. And also we have Dark Disciple coming out, which it's the Venture story they never got to tell, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. And that's pretty much all to say, so like, dislike, comment, subscribe, and this is JStarC60 signing out. Until next time, may the Force be with you.